can't see the screen when I'm sitting there.
Because Fiona moved.
Move the camera. I usually have to duck.
Yeah.
Good evening and welcome. Sorry to look at my back of my head for so long. Tonight we're looking at the life of Moses, and this is going to be a lesson number 7. Now, all of those resources that you needed are either on the screen behind me or in a worksheet that was posted on Facebook, or you received it through the mail. And so we're glad you could join us for tonight. You can help us out by liking and sharing this video so more people can be part of our Bible study. You'll also need a Bible. Now, all of the verses that you see today that appear on the screen will be from the EHV. That's the Evangelical Heritage Version. But whatever version you have at home is just fine. Now, this is an interactive Bible study, so you can also participate if you're watching at home by either commenting, and my helpful assistant here will shout those out, or you can write them down in the comments and I'll respond later if you would rather. For that, we don't have as many people as we normally do. We've been averaging about 9 to 10, I think, most nights around there. Tonight we have a light crowd, probably because of the rain, which is
fog.
Rain and fog. Well, today I asked my phone because I was worried about that. I said, "Hey Siri, surely it's not going to rain today." And Siri responded to me, "Yes, it is, and don't call me Shirley."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I found out that I left my phone on airplane mode. You
I
got
know
that one. You
one.
got
I
that
know
one.
that one. Don't call me Shirley.
Yeah, see? All right. Well, it all started to rain, though, when we got over here. So the kids and I, we all came over just as the rain really started. I guess you could say it missed us. I'd go all night.
Yep.
All right. Well, we're going to get started. So grab your Bible studies and do comment if you're watching from home. The first thing that we're going to do is what you see on the screen. It's the very first little point there. It says, Tom Rainer passionately declared that the vast majorities of pastors with whom our team communicates are saying that they are considered quitting their churches. It's a trend that I have not seen in my lifetime. Leadership fatigue takes many to the sidelines, whether they are a pastor, a student leader, a family leader, or a business professional. The toll is great, and most leaders consider getting out from time to time. So this thing that you see here, where he talks about the pastors quitting churches, that was actually a research done back, I think, in 2019, and it is shocking. 33% of pastors that graduate from seminary quit within 4 years. And the reason was that they're getting burnout or they're wearing out, and they don't like the way that they have to lead and things like that. And so tonight we're going to look at how Moses deals with the fatigue of leadership, and how you can take that home in your particular home, whether you're the leader of your home or whether it's something you do amongst a group that you're in. What we can learn from the Holy Scriptures on that. And that gets us to question number 1. It says, whether you're at church or the workplace, your school, or in another setting, when have you experienced a change in leadership, and what happened? So first of all, go ahead.
Well, the school I taught at, we've changed superintendents.
Okay.
Or principals, and it makes a real difference.
So what kind of things do people see when they change leadership? What kind of things do you witness? You said it makes a big difference.
Well, for one thing, whether you respect the person that takes over, that's one.
Yeah.
Whether you feel they're competent and are really good at leading you, or whether they're just there because they need a couple more years before retirement.
There you go.
I'm thinking of that in education.
Anybody else got any kind of what happens when when one leader leaves and another one comes in,
Systems change.
systems change. The way you do things change. So specifically looking at Tom Rainer's study, he found a couple big things. The first one was that there's a loss of momentum or vision. So in other words, under the previous leader, things were just starting to pick up, right? Especially if it's a short-term kind of thing within 10 years or less. Things were just starting to go well, and then all of a sudden, the person leaves and it's a peter out moment. It says pastorless churches will begin to see a lost momentum in the church body and the church staff. They will see waning emphasis on the living out of the Great Commission to serve those that don't talk with or don't walk with Christ. All of these initiatives and ministries that had been established under the previous leadership are at risk of major decline without a clear vision and leadership purpose at the top. So in other words, if the pastor or the leader had started a program, when he leaves, typically he's the one that ran the program, and that's going to go away. Another thing they said is that there's going to be big staff turnover. This would probably be more with like you said, with a school or things. I won't read what you have there, but I'll tell you a quick story. When I taught in a public school, I was teaching 4th grade, and we got a brand new principal. And the principal retired kind of quickly over the summer, so something happened with his wife, and now she needed more care. He quickly retired, and they hired a new principal on. The new principal was very good, but he wasn't that guy that had the love of the staff. And so the next year, about a quarter of the teachers transferred to other schools because they couldn't
didn't
get
get
along.
to know him.
Yeah.
They didn't get to know him.
Yep. All right. So the next thing they notice is for a church, when you are missing a pastor or a leader, you're going to have attendance decline. Typically. So, especially when you start looking at long vacancies, one of the jobs of the leader is to go shepherd the people, round them up, bring them in. And when those people aren't there, when the pastor is gone, some of those things fall through the cracks. So you can see here it says, it only is natural that all of the previously mentioned challenges have a potential compound and eventually lead to attendance decline. It's harder and harder to keep people around when there's no clear leadership at the top. And you see that. Where we see that in our church body is a lot of times in the smaller churches that are already around 30, 40, 50 in attendance, and a pastor will take a call and he'll leave and he'll go to Mankato or something like that. That church had 50 members that came every week. All of a sudden, they're hearing different people come in and preach, and they don't get to know the person, or they get elders that are reading it. And sometimes what happens is people go, well, the pastor's not here, so therefore I don't have to come. It's a flawed thinking, but it happens. Here's another one. A lack of giving happens in the church. So why do you think there'd be less giving if a pastor's not there? Based on what we have just went through, the loss of mission, staff turnover, and attendance decline. There's just fewer people.
Well, yeah.
There's fewer people, so you're not getting the
okay.
donations there. Another thing is, if there's no missions going on, people a lot of times like to assign their offerings or think that their offerings are helping out with something. But if there's no evangelism or programs going on, there's really nothing other than the lights, and people don't always give as abundantly. All right, question number 2. When have you felt like putting down the burdens and responsibilities you were carrying? When do you feel like you need to put down your burdens?
You felt at peace. Oh, sorry, Darlene, go ahead. You felt at peace.
You feel like at peace?
Yeah.
See, I was
You don't
thinking
have
it's the
burden.
opposite. Like, when you're high stressed, what do you want to do?
Quit.
You want to quit,
No.
right?
Or
Everything's
get
going,
away from the
You wanna get-
stressful situation.
that's right. Everything seems to be going not the way you had planned it. Even if it's not going wrong, it's just not happening the way you planned it. It creates a lot of anxiety. And what do? You go, I quit, right? And you see that a lot today with, you hear about people not being able to hold employees in their places of employment. And you look at the Zillennials, is that what they are called now, the younger kids? And what happens with these younger kids is they go in and they can't deal with the situation. And so instead of kind of working through it, what do?
Quit.
I quit. And so that's why you have places that go through, 10 staff members a month. And that's real in restaurants today. I mean, we've all seen that where you go in and they say, we're short-staffed because so-and-so quit. That's what's going on, is they're feeling stressed, and so they're putting it down. And so it might be like something like this, you feel real stressed. All right, let's go to the next one. Oh, I got a farmer up there too. There's a farmer that's going to quit. Okay. When have you felt like putting down, or what did you do? What do people tend to do when they feel overburdened? Where do they turn? Just the average American, when they feel really stressed, what do they do?
If they're strong church going, go back to the Lord.
Okay, if they're strong church going, we're going to come back to that when they go to the Lord. I'm talking just your average, plain, run-of-the-mill.
They start drinking.
Look at that. Sandy, look at that. You got it.
Answers in the mouth.
So a lot of people will do that. They'll turn to the Bible. They'll turn to drugs. They'll turn to those kind of things because that gives them stress release, they think.
But
right?
it makes it 10 times worse. It's not a relief for stress.
Yeah. And so what other things do people do when they're really stressed? Where
You
do they
stay
turn?
home and don't get dressed.
There you go. They turn to home, family, vacation. They say, hey, too much, I'm gonna put it off, right? I'll gather with people that like me, right? And so that's what they do. And finally, we have an obesity problem in this
Really?
in this country, right?
You sure?
I think so. And so what do we do?
I don't think that is the
My.
answer.
We turn to food, right? And so you have a stressful day,
That's where
and
I
people
came here.
power eat. Nothing. You were too stressed out at work, but nothing that chocolate won't fix, right?
At least they didn't put
And
chocolate
so
up there.
these
Reese's.
are places, common place that people change. Now, there's lots more. But the other thing that you might consider is what Eilert said. Eilert made a very good point. He said, if you're a good Christian going,
Yeah.
you should turn to the Lord.
True.
And if you think about that, the Lord is really calling us, come to me all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest, right? And I always like to tell the kids in confirmation when we're talking about this, when you're thinking about eating all those junk foods, right? The Lord feeds you with the means of grace. He feeds you with His Word. You fill yourself up with that. That's going to last a lot longer than peanut butter, right? Fill yourself up with the Lord's Supper. That's going to last longer. How are you going to feel after you eat 10 chocolate bars? Guilty, sick, and tired, right? But you come here and you receive the Lord's Supper, you leave feeling forgiven and restored. And then you have baptism. You can remember your baptism. Wash you clean instead of washing it down with liquor, right? All of those things build up, and that's where we should turn, but we don't always do that. Even the pastor going, folks, and that's why so many of them resign after a short amount of time. Look at the next paragraph on your Bible site. It says, being responsible for a nation comprised of former slaves who were fearful, suspicious, and ungrateful was a heavy burden. The people had their constant gripes against Moses and against God. We're going to stop there for just a second, because this is specifically referring to the time in the wilderness. Can you understand why the Israelites would be tired, worried, and want to lay down their burdens after walking in the wilderness?
Yes.
After coming out of Egypt?
It was a long journey for
It was a
them to
long
walk
journey.
on foot.
It was a change, right? We talked about change. They've just gone from Egypt, where Pharaoh was their boss, and now they're following the Lord, and who is the Lord provided as their leader? Moses. Very different leadership styles, right? And so we all of a sudden see something in the people. The people do something unexpected. God continues to provide for them, and what do?
Turn against Him.
They turn against Him. To kind of give us a refresher of this, we're going to watch a short little video.
God's story, wilderness.
So part of God's story is about how God took care of his family in the wilderness. And it begins like this. For many years, God's family was stuck as slaves in Egypt. So, God chose a guy named Moses to lead them out of slavery and into an amazing home called Canaan, or the Promised Land, where they could be free. From the moment the Israelites left Egypt, God made it clear that he was with his family. He led them with a cloud during the day and a pillar of fire at night. He actually split the Red Sea in 2 parts so they could walk to safety. But the journey from Egypt to the Promised Land was hard. In fact, the Israelites didn't know where to find food and water, or when they would get to Canaan. So just 3 days after leaving Egypt, they started complaining. What are we going to drink? Now Moses knew that God hadn't freed them from Egypt and parted the Red Sea just to let them die of thirst in the desert. So he asked the Lord to help, and God helped. Then, about a month later, they complained again. If only the Lord had killed us back in Egypt, they moaned. There we sat around pots filled with meat and ate all the bread we wanted. Now you have brought us into this wilderness to starve us to death. They actually wished they could be slaves again. Kids, have you ever complained about something instead of trusting God for help? Well, guess what? God had a plan his family never could have imagined. In the morning, dew covered the ground, and when it was gone, there were flakes of food that looked like frost. The Israelites called it manna, which means, what is it? Moses told them to eat it all and not to save any. But of course, some people saved a little, just to be safe. Remember, they were worried they wouldn't have what they needed. The next morning, the old manna was full of maggots, which are little bugs. Yuck! But the good news is, there was also new manna. See, God wanted them to trust him every single day. What's really crazy, though, is on the 6th day of every week, God did tell them to gather enough for 2 days. That way, they had 1 day to rest. It's called a Sabbath, and it's a day of rest. So when they woke up on the 7th day of the week, the manna they had saved was as fresh as it was when it first fell. We don't know how that happened, but it did. Well, the Israelites kept traveling, following the cloud and fire, eating new manna every day, and getting a Sabbath every week. It might seem pretty clear that God was with them, but they weren't so sure. At one point, they even said to Moses, "Is the Lord with us or not? Why did you bring us out of Egypt? Are you trying to kill us with thirst?" The people had stopped trusting Moses, which really meant they had stopped trusting God, just because things got hard. Moses knew God had a plan, though, and he asked for help. Turns out, God had another miracle in store. God said, "Take your staff, strike the rock, and water will come gushing out." And it did. For about 40 more years, God's family wandered the desert. And all that time, God kept on giving them food, water, rest, and protection. He even kept their clothes from wearing out. God's family couldn't take care of themselves on their own. They had to trust God. But he always gave them just enough, just in time, and often in ways they could have never expected. And that's the story of how God took care of his family in the wilderness. So, in case you missed it, here's the quick version.
All right, so that was a good review. Now, oh, I gotta fix that. Hold on. I don't know what that is. All right, let's see. Menu. There he goes. All right. So, as you can see, the people like to complain. Here's a fun little tip for you as long as we're talking about the manna. Has anybody in here eaten manna before? The closest American food that you can buy to manna without having special ordered off of Amazon, believe it or not, is Rice Krispies.
Oh, no.
It's
Plain
true.
Rice Krispie cereal?
Unflavored Rice Krispie cereal. If you taste it,
Yeah,
that's
maybe
about
sure.
the same. And I'll show you a picture of it if you come on Sunday when we go through Mark. I've got a picture of it, I think, on the PowerPoint to show you. That's modern day manna. But the grains look about like Rice Krispies, and when you taste them, that's about how bland it is. And so we'll see a little bit later how the Israelites spiced it up a little bit to make it better. All right, let's take a look at the next one. It says, likewise, Moses had his own set of frustrations. In a very frank passage, we get a good look at how Moses handles his burdens of leadership and what God does to empower him. All right, we're going to go to our Bibles now. If you have a Bible, you can open up to Numbers chapter 11, or you can follow along on the screen. We're going to do verses 1 through 9 here. So, would somebody be willing to read?
The people were complaining about their hardships, so the Lord heard it. When the Lord heard it, his anger burned. So the Lord's fire burned among them and consumed some of the outskirts of the camp. The people cried out to Moses, and Moses prayed to the Lord. So the fire died down. They named that place Taberah,
Yep.
because the Lord's fire burned among them. The foreign rebel who were among the Israelites were overcome by their craving. The Israelites also wept once again and said, "Who is going to give us meat to eat? We remember the fish we ate in Egypt free of charge, the cucumbers, the melons, the leeks, the onions, and the garlic. But now our lives are wasting away. We have nothing at all to look at except this manna." The manna was like coriander seed, and it looked like resin. The people went around, gathered it up. They would grind it in hand mills or crush it in a mortar. They would boil it in pots or make it into loaves. It tasted like a cake made with oil. When dew fell on the camp during the night, the manna fell along with it.
All right. So question number 3 says, describe your impression of the state of the nation of Israel at this stage in their desert journey to the promised land. How are they feeling? Miserable.
Lost.
Lost.
Nothing to look forward to.
Nothing to look forward to. That's right. All of those things right there. And worn, tired, impatient, fatigued, and you can think of all those other words that we just described. They are feeling angry as well, right? And that's where the complaining comes from. In fact, it's kind of interesting to think that they actually said to the Lord, "You brought us from being slaves to be free for this?" Like, who would want to go back and be a slave? You know what I mean? The food couldn't have been that good. And so then you get this little description that's kind of interesting, where it says, manna, wafer-like substance, described in verses 7 and 9, was Israel's daily provision in the desert. In what different ways did the Israelites cook the manna? And if you look up here,
Right.
go ahead and go. You see the description. It says right there, the manna was like coriander seed, and it looked like resin. The people went around and gathered it up, and they would grind it in hand mills or crush it in a mortar, and they would boil it in pots and make it into loaves. It tasted like a cake made with oil. So they didn't just eat the manna. They would, of course, eat the manna just fresh, but they did other things with it.
Mm-hmm.
So remember, I described it kind of as like a plain Rice Krispie. This is what it actually looks like.
It doesn't even look like it.
Yeah. So in all of your time, just curious, of all your time hearing the story, have you ever actually seen manna? So this is modern day manna. You can see it here, where it kind of looks like a resin, and it's a little crispy, and they can pick it up and they can eat it that way, and it tastes like a plain bread, a very plain bread, a Rice Krispie, almost unflavored. And so what did it say they did to it in that verse? Look back at 7 and 9.
Well, they said they beat it in the mortars, they boil it in pots.
And made it into loaves, right? Mm-hmm. So this is a manna loaf. It's still made in Israel today. You can get it. So you-
Pistachio nuts. in
Yeah,
it.
you can see what they've done is they ground it up, and you see these little things right here? That's the bits of manna. And so this is kind of the bread. It would be a very unleavened bread. It'd be very flat. And you wouldn't have yeast in it. It'd be just kind of a dense, hard bread. But you would get different flavors in it that way. And then also they boiled it in the pots. So there is boiled manna.
See, that's what I was thinking of.
What does it look like?
Porridge.
Porridge, oats, right? These kinds of things. So they did some interesting kind of things to make it more exciting for them. So they weren't just, you know, sometimes our old Sunday school books, we think that they're just walking around picking up loaves of bread. And that's not what it was. They would gather it, they would cook it just like we do our food today, right? And they would try different ways to get. Remember, they would still be able to find things like wild honey in the desert and things like that. They would find different spices and things that they would be able to mix with it and add to it to increase its flavor. All right, this would be your worst nightmare one day. Fiona hates oatmeal. And you'd be in trouble if you were an Israelite. All right. Question number 5. How do you think it is possible that the miraculous gift was treated with such disdain? So
You get
How-
tired of it.
they got tired of it.
What we do, you get tired of something even though pretty wonderful.
The past is always wonderful.
The past is that's a good one.
Oh,
The
that good
past
food
is
we
always
always
wonderful,
had.
right? We do that all the time. We candy coat things from our childhood, right? And we think how much better life was in the past, right? Like right now, I was just telling somebody the other day how bad the world was. I was telling them about how there's wars in Israel, and there's this going on, and we're in this kind of like thing where we're angry at Russia, and Russia's angry at us, and how bad things are. And then they quickly looked at me and said, "You don't remember the 80s very well, do you?"
80s.
And I went, "Oh, it's exactly the same in the 80s, wasn't it? We were in a Cold War. Israel was getting their Olympic people killed, and things were all basically the same, right? But because it's gone through our nostalgic mind, what do? We make everything shine brighter, right? Politicians were always better back in the old days.
You
You sure?
so?
But then you
I
go,
don't think so.
well, maybe not, right? All right. So let's take a look at what kind of along what you said, what the Bible say leads us to say. Apparently, there were some Egyptians who had married the Israelites and decided to travel along to the Promised Land. The content of the complaint was supposed inadequacy of the manna, the miracle food of God provided for his wandering people each day. The people wanted meat and vegetables. The desire itself was not wrong, but the attitude of the complaint led the people to remember the tantalizing taste and treats that Egypt had to offer. How quickly the Israelites forgot the whole situation. How could they claim the food in Egypt was at no cost? Because you notice they said that? And he said that back in Egypt, we got it all for free.
They worked for it,
They worked for it.
and they died for it.
Yeah, they were slaves. Think about what we know about our slavery in the United States. It wasn't free, right? I mean, we provided huts and things like that, but it was, you had to work hard. And we know that when Pharaoh upped his ante and said, you're going to produce this many bricks and I'm going to take away your straw and stuff, that wasn't easy for them. They might have been getting food, but that's their room and board, right, for slaves. So it wasn't at no cost. All right, question number 6. What complaints are commonly heard in the church about the Christian life or the church? What complaints have you made? So if you're talking about the church, let's go with the church. You're talking about the church. What do people commonly complain about in a church today? Not just our church. Don't say the pastor's ugly or anything. So what do people commonly complain about when they think about churches today?
I don't like the music.
They don't like the music.
The
The music's too old and dusty.
The worst one I heard, there's no children in that church, and the church is going to be dying.
There you go.
There's no growth.
And that one's always got me because you know who I always hear that one from? people that have kids, and you say, but if your kids came, there'd be more kids in the
Oh.
church. Right? It's an excuse not to go. What other things?
Pastors, the pastor's sermon's too long.
Yeah,
Pastor
I was
sermon's
gonna
too
say
long.
that too.
Yeah,
Puts
that's right.
Puts everybody to sleep.
And there's one I heard, but I wasn't in church to see it because I was at work, but I heard it from Bible study. Everybody was complaining the way the pastor did his entire service in a fast pace. They're not used to it because they're used to traditional service.
There you go. So all of these are kind of together. This again from Tom Rayner, and Tom Rayner had asked people, or pastors as they were leading, about some of the complaints that were on their nerves the most. And these are what they came up with. This church isn't meeting my needs. All right? And he says, when we expect churches to meet our needs, we're setting them up for failure. Only the Lord can truly satisfy you, right? You're not a member of, go back. Oh, yeah, go back. You're not a member of a country club, right? You don't join a church and everybody comes in and says, hey, how can we serve you? But instead it'd be, how can you serve the church, right? And so when you say it's not meeting my needs, it's kind of a selfish statement, isn't it? All right, let's go to the next one. I'm not being fed at this church. What does that mean? It doesn't mean actually.
I don't like what they're doing. It's not making me feel any better.
Yep, there it is. Maybe the pastor's sermons aren't as deep as you like, or maybe they're too this or that, right?
Or you don't like the music.
There you go. I've
Pastor,
always asked people to say this. Oh, go ahead.
I got one question
Yeah.
on that. I think the pastor's talking to me all the time,
Well,
accusing me of things I've been doing during the week.
that usually means I'm not speaking to you. That
But you
usually-
hit the gardener nail on the head.
That's what you're supposed to do, right? I always ask people who say this, what's wrong? Is what he says. Are you feeling ill? Here's my point. Hungry people eat. I've seen homeless people eat the leftovers straight out of the garbage can. I've seen college students rejoice over the nastiest, waxy-looking cheap pizza, and I've seen starving children gladly eat the vegetables that my kids snub their noses at. Hungry people eat. So if you're actually hungry for the word of the Lord, you're going to get it, aren't you? Because the word does not return to the Lord empty, according to Isaiah. All right, let's go to this next one. I only serve where I'm gifted. So the council's sitting around there going, who can do these jobs? Who can be the next Sunday school teacher? Who can be our next trustee? Right? And you ask somebody and they say, well, I'm not gifted at that. Right? So his response to that is, can you imagine the things that would be left undone if people only serve where they're gifted? I mean, who has the gift of window washing? Do you see?
Or garbage collecting.
Garbage collecting, yeah.
I
And
always
yeah,
think of them.
thank goodness for like Cindy and Mike and Judy and our organist and all these people. There may not be any praise for you there. It might not be fancy, but those are ways that you serve. The next one, this is the one Fiona hit on. The music at this church is just too blank, right? You don't have a rock band, or you have a rock band, and I don't want... So because everyone has their own personal preferences, here's my plea. Can we just stop? The music isn't for us anyways. Music in this church is a tool for worship, and worship is for God. And so the argument here is when we have our preferences and we say, well, I don't like that you use the TLH, right? Again, you've turned it on to what you want, and it's now become a club, hasn't it? And it's not about what we want, it's about the Lord. And so you're getting fed, and so this is how you feed. All right, next one. Our church isn't deep enough. People in the church like to sound spiritual by saying, I want to go deeper. More often than that, it reflects a desire for exhaustive, expository teaching. That means like you go verse by verse. Some pastors do that. They'll start at Mark, and their sermons, you normally see this in Reformed churches, there'll be an hour-long sermon. You think 20 minutes is bad. Imagine an hour-long sermon. And you get online and look. So,
Let me rephrase that. When a minister tells me what I did, and then comes back and tells me another version, and from a different side, And then the third time he sends it from the south side. Pretty soon, I lost sleep.
Yeah,
I'm already asleep.
I get you. And this is the opposite. This is looking for, in the Reformed Church, a lot of times what they'll do is they'll take Mark, and the pastor's sermon this week will be Mark verses 1 through 15, and he'll preach on every single verse until he gets through it. It's usually an hour, hour and a half. And then at the end of that sermon, it cuts off, and the next week he does Mark 16 through 28. And he just preaches that way until you've spent an entire year on the book of Mark. Do you see how that works? And so, I thought this was interesting. I love expository Bible study. It's awesome. But the pious complaint that one's pastor isn't doing enough deep teaching is kind of silly. You know why? Because Jesus didn't teach like that. And I thought it was interesting what he says here. Look at this. Jesus didn't own a Strong's complete dictionary of the Bible words or a complete Bible of commentaries. He never once said to his audience, in the original Hebrew, this is what the prophet meant. There's no record of Jesus giving a verse-by-verse expository message anywhere in the New Testament. If Jesus preached the Sermon on the Mount in our churches today, I wonder how many people might complain that he wasn't going deep enough. And yet we have the Sermon on the Mount. It's considered the greatest sermon ever. But it was preached today in our churches just by itself, and that was the entire sermon. How many people would say, I got nothing out of it? But it has such deep meaning, doesn't it? All right. So question number 6. What complaints are commonly heard in the church? Oh, we already did that one. Go to the next one. Now we're going to go to question number 11, or Numbers 11, 10 through 22. Would somebody be willing to read, let's say, 10 through 15?
Moses heard people from all the clans weeping, each one at the entrance to his own tent. At the same time, the Lord's anger burned fiercely, and Moses was displeased. Moses said to the Lord, "Why have you treated your servant so badly? Why have I not found favor in your eyes? Why do you put the burden of all these people on me? Did I conceive all these people by myself? Am I the one who gave birth to them so that you tell me to carry them in my arms to the land which you swore to their fathers? Just as a woman who is nursing carries a baby, where is there meat for me to give to all these people? Listen, they are weeping to me and saying, 'Give us meat so that we can eat.' I am not able to carry all these people by myself, because that is too much for me. If you are going to treat me this way, please kill me right now. If I have found favor in your eyes, do not let me see my own ruin."
All right. If you go back for just a second, Fiona, where do we see Moses' frustration coming out?
Oh,
Everybody complaining to him.
And now he's feeling overwhelmed, isn't
Right.
he?
Like he can't handle this big problem.
Yeah. And he actually says, look at this. Yeah, am I able to carry all these people by myself?
Uh-huh.
Right? So the people have been complaining, this is what we want, this is what we want, and he's just overwhelmed. He is gone. And he turns to the Lord and he says, help me. You gotta help me. Right? Now we're going to go on, and Fiona's going to read the next one. She's going to read 16 through 22. Jump up there.
So the Lord said to Moses, "Gather 70 men from the elders of Israel for me, men whom you know to be elders and officers for the people. Take them to the tent of the meeting and make them stand there with you. I will come down and talk with you there. I will talk from the Spirit that is on you and will put it on them. They will share the burden of the people with you, so that you will not have to carry it by yourself. Say to the people, 'Consecrate yourselves to be ready for tomorrow. You will eat meat because you have wept, and the Lord has heard you say, "Who will give us the meat to eat?" Yes, things were good for us in Egypt. Therefore the Lord will give you meat, and you will eat. You will eat not just for 1 day, for 2 days, for 5 days, for 10 days, not even just for 20 days, but for a whole month, until meat comes out of your nostrils, and you become to loathe it. This will happen because you have rejected the Lord who is among you, and you have wept in his presence, saying, 'What did we come out of Egypt?' Moses said, 'I am in the middle of the people with 600,000 foot soldiers. And now you say, I will give them meat, and they will eat for a whole month. If flocks and herds were slaughtered for them, would that be enough for them? If all the fish of the sea were caught for them, would that be enough for them?
All right, one thing I just want to mention here that I thought was kind of interesting is Moses is handed to by the Lord a church council. Did you catch it?
Yeah.
He's overwhelmed. He's saying, I can't do this all by myself. And God says, I'll give you 70 men. And these men are all going to have their jobs, and they're going to help take care of the people. And if you think about how the church is structured today, we don't have 70 people on council. Can you imagine? But a church council and the elders, what are their jobs? Their jobs are to take care of their positions and help the pastor and the church function, right? Because oftentimes when you see churches that fail, it's because the pastor is trying to do everything all by himself. But you can see in a church that is successful that it's not all about the pastor. It's not Pastor Lutheran Church. It is the church that belongs to the people, and the people are taking responsibilities too. All right, let's go to question number 7 now. How does God deal with the people's complaints? In verses 18 through 20, what does he say? You look back there again. No, you can go for it.
He gives them the meat they want, and they're
Yeah.
gonna get so much they'll be tired of it.
There you go.
So they can
That comes out
complain
the
about the
nose.
meat.
I like that. That sounds like my mom's solution. I mean, you know, now I know where she got it from, right? I will give you meat, and you will eat not just for one day. And then he goes on and tells, I love this, until meat comes out of your nostrils. Right? You're going to just be tired of it, and you're going to complain about that. You want it? I'll give it to you. And so he solves the problem for him there, right? And then look what he does later on. We're going to come back to this later on, but this is in Numbers 11, 31 through 34. Would somebody be willing to read 31, 32, 33, 34?
A wind sent out from the Lord brought quail in from the sea. The wind scattered them throughout the camp, and about a day's journey in any direction around the camp, about 3 feet deep on the ground. All that day, all that night, and all the next day, the people got up and gathered the quail. No one gathered fewer than 60 bushels. They spread them out around the camp. But while the meat was still between their teeth before it was chewed, the Lord's anger burned against the people, and the Lord struck the people with a very severe plague. They named that place Kibroth Hattaavah, because there they buried the people who were overcome by their craving. I didn't remember that.
So God gave them what they wanted, and then
And
said,
more.
and more, choke on, right? Essentially, right? And that's what he says. It's going to come out of your nose, and you're going to get more than you want, and it's going to, I mean, you see where some of these words come from, right? I have this coming out my nose, right? And so question number 7, how does God deal with people? Well, God gave them what they asked for. In many ways, this answer from God and Moses might be disturbing to us. Both of them were clearly angry and lost patience. Through the plagues, the Red Sea and the manna, and the Israelites had been abundantly and graciously provided for. Yet they showed themselves to be faithless and unresponsive. At some point, anger such as hard-heartedness is anger to such hard-heartedness is an appropriate and just response.
Oh, boy.
So God finally says, you get what you asked for. And, yeah. All right, question number 8. God is angry. Moses is troubled. How would you characterize the relationship now that Moses and God have with each other?
Touchy.
Touchy?
We both are like in charge of people.
They're both in charge of people.
Oh.
And when they're talking with each other, how is Moses when he speaks to the Lord? Is he hiding things?
No, probably not.
No. You see, he goes and he says, are you helping me or not, God? Right? And we call that an honest relationship, right? He's not scared of God. He knows that God is good. It's a very honest relationship. All right, so let's go through this. Partnership. Moses and God together shared the burden of the nation, like you said. They were both in charge of people. The next is what I said, honesty. They had this honest relationship with one another. Moses didn't, for a second, hesitate about telling God about the people of the promise, and he also didn't hesitate sharing his burdens with God. And why is that important for us? to know that Moses did this to God.
Well, we can be honest too.
We can be honest too. When you're having a really rotten day, talk to God about it. Right? Don't think he doesn't hear you. I mean, look at what Moses is doing in his examples. And then the last one, they have this responsive relationship. God received Moses' frustration and he provided for his concerns. God says, if you knock, the door shall be opened, right? And it doesn't mean you're going to get the Corvette you're praying for, right? But it does say that God will hear every prayer and he will give you the appropriate answer. And sometimes that answer might be no, and you might be angry about it. But God's going to hear everything you bring before him. And so, in those ways, have more of a relationship like this. Have a partnership with God. Have an honest relationship with God, and know that it's going to be a responsive relationship. All right, question number 9. So, what is Moses really upset about? And what do you tend to do when you feel overwhelmed? So here we have this in verse 21. Moses said, "I am in the middle of these people, 600,000 foot shoulders, and now you say I will give them meat, and they will eat for a whole month. If flocks and herds were slaughtered for them, would that be enough for them? If all of the fish of the sea were caught for them, would that be enough for him?" So what's he feeling overwhelmed or upset about?
He's not pleasing them, and that they're just being selfish.
They're being selfish. The people keep complaining. If you ever had, go ahead.
Even though they got everything, they still complain.
They still complain, even though they got everything.
And how he's fixed them, the flocks, they overate and then they got sick.
Yep. And so you see, and even with us, think about our relationships with our kids sometimes. You give your kids this and this and this and this and this, and the first thing they do is they say, "But so-and-so gets more than I do." Right? Every parent in here can understand it. Sandy, as a teacher, I'm sure you got this all the time in the classroom where kids would complain about things and you were like, "I'm giving you everything you need." Right?
Yeah, so the complaints stop.
Yeah. So that's the kind of what he's upset about, that none of this is actually resolving by the people. They're being selfish. The Bible study says this: Moses was upset about the constant and impossible demands of the complainers. Moses was also upset with God for calling him to be a leader of Israel. In light of the constant complaints and demands, Moses seemed to think at this point that this whole Exodus endeavor might end in catastrophe. All right? So why do you think God responds to the Israelites with anger, but to Moses with help and understanding? So the people get the birds, and like you said, they're choking on it. But he comes to Moses and he says, I'm gonna provide them with meat, I'm gonna provide them with manna, and I'm gonna give you water. Why? What do you think the difference is between both have complained to God now? What's the difference between the complaints?
One's being grateful for what they get in the end result.
Okay, say it louder.
One's being grateful for what they get in the end result.
Okay. So hers, could I say that, could I characterize it as an attitude?
Yeah, the attitude.
Are there different kinds of complaints with attitudes?
Well, yeah. If someone is just standing there and complaining at you, and you can see they're not going to listen to what you tell them, or you can listen to them and try to show them another way.
Okay, you're exactly right. So when I was teaching, or when I was a principal, I would have teachers come to me and complain sometimes about different things. And one of the things I said, I would always say to them, "Well, what's the solution?
Yeah.
Don't just bring me the complaint, bring me the solution."
What are you going to do about
Because
it?
there was an attitude difference, right? One was,
Yeah.
it's all your fault. What are you doing? Why are you upset, right? And they would point the finger. But somebody that would bring a solution would say, "I see this problem," and that's their complaint, right? And they would say, "But I think I know how we can fix it." And there was a different attitude in those kinds of people. And that's really what it boils down to here. It says, God treated Moses and the complainers differently because their heart motivations were different. The prophet Samuel said that humans look at the outward appearance, but God looks at the heart. Those who were grumbling were seeking self-gratification. They were being selfish, Fiona. Moses was seeking to be a better servant to God and the nation, right? So he goes and he says, God, you put me in charge of these people, now help me, right? Because I can't do it. And the people come and they say, give me, give me, give me. It's a different kind of complaint. All right, we're going to go to Numbers chapter 11, verses 23 through 25. And could we get somebody be willing to read 23 to, let's say, 30?
The Lord said to Moses, "Is the arm of the Lord too short? Now you will see whether what I have said to you will happen or not." Moses went out and told the people the Lord's word. He gathered 70 men from the elders of the people and had them stand all around the tent. The Lord came down in a cloud and spoke to him. He took from the spirit that was on Moses and put it on the 70 elders. When the spirit rested on them, they prophesied, and they did not do it again. 2 men, however, remained in the camp. The name of the one was Eldad, and the name of the other was Medad. They were listed among the elders, but they had not gone out to the tent. The Spirit rested on them, and they prophesied back in the camp. A young man ran and reported this to Moses. He said, "Eldad and Medad are prophesying in the camp." Joshua, son of Nun, Moses' aide from his youth, answered, "My lord Moses, stop them." Moses said to them, "Are you jealous for my sake? If only all of God's people were prophets, so that the Lord would put his spirit on them." Then Moses returned to the camp along with the elders of Israel. A wind sent out from the Lord brought quail in from the sea. The wind scattered them throughout the camp, about a day's journey in any direction around the camp, about 3 feet deep and on the ground. All that day, all that night, and all that next day, the people got up and gathered the quail. No one gathered fewer than 60 bushels. They spread them out around the camp. But while the meat was still between their teeth, before it was chewed, the Lord's anger burned against the people, and the Lord struck the people with a very severe plague. They named this place Kibroth Hattaavah, because there they buried the people who were overcome by their craving. From Kibroth Hattaavah, the people traveled to Hazeroth, and they stayed at Hazeroth.
All right. Now the grumbling begins only 3 days into the journey. Perhaps aching muscles and sore feet cause their discomfort. God provides guidance to the promised land and manna to eat on the way. In return for his love, he receives grumbling. Sometimes obeying God causes pain and suffering. When you are tempted to grumble, think of Christ at Gethsemane and how he turned his pain into prayers. Meditate on how he willingly submitted to the Father's will for the sake of our salvation. So I thought that was kind of interesting, this passage here where it says, sometimes obeying God causes pain and suffering.
Yeah.
Right? It can be that you refuse to do something and you're left out. It can be that you stand up for the truth of God's word and you say, this is what the Bible says, and all your friends disagree, and so they call you names. Or my goodness, look at the things that are being propagated right now in America, that if you're a woman, you should support abortion because it's your right. Right? And if you say you don't, how are you left to feel?
You're not true to your womanhood.
You're not true to
You're
your
letting
womanhood.
them down.
There it is. And so these are all ways that obeying God sometimes causes pain for us,
Yeah.
right? And so question number 11 says, while power is a great privilege, it's also a heavy burden, not easily and often not willingly shared. What can we learn from Moses' response to God for empowering the 70 elders, especially if we look back? Look at how he responds. Go back, the other way. Keep going. Where is Eldad? Go back all the way to Eldad. There we go. Oh. All right. All right. One of the Spirit rested on them, and they prophesied back in the camp. A young
Right.
man came and reported this to Moses.
Yeah.
He said, Eldad and Medad are prophesying in the camp. Right? So he's upset about it. Joshua, son of Nun, Moses' aide from his youth, answered, My Lord, and Moses, stop them. But now look how Moses responds. Moses said to them, Are you jealous for my sake? If only all the Lord's people were prophets, so that the Lord would put his Spirit on them. So what did Moses just say about these two guys go in the camp that started doing the job?
They're doing what maybe you should start doing.
There you
There's
go.
nothing wrong with their,
He wasn't hanging on to that,
Yeah.
that like some people do, where they cling to the leadership and they say, only I can do it.
right,
Right?
conceit.
Right. What's he doing? He's saying, God provided these people. You better believe I'm going to use them. Right? And so, and we look at this, I thought this was interesting. Power tends to corrupt, and
Right.
absolute power corrupts.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And you see a lot of this in history. So think about George Washington. So George Washington is the president of the United States, and before they made him president, what did they want to make him?
King.
King. And he said, no, I don't want that much power. Right? And then he runs for, he's elected twice, and then what does he say after he's been elected twice?
To know.
I don't want to do this anymore. If you elect somebody this way, it's going to be that way forever. Don't do it. He's willing to share that responsibility, share that leadership. Right?
I think true leaders will see that there's other resources too.
Yeah, and that's important, especially in a church setting, because if a pastor leaves or a pastor dies or something like that, and everything is dependent upon the pastor, what happens?
Collapse.
Goes with the pastor.
Everything collapses. But like here, where you have elders that all have jobs and everything keeps running and all those kind of things, when a pastor leaves or dies or something, the church isn't going to collapse because leadership, the roles, has been shared, right? And everybody, it just keeps going because they're here for the Lord. They're not trying to say, look at me.
And you get more out of it, I think. When you investigate and see what's really making it rather than just sitting there and drinking it in, when you can understand why.
Mm-hmm.
You can see where you can fit in.
And that's an important thing too, because when you have people that are all together and everybody is has an important role in the church, what happens in some larger churches, like the mega churches, when a pastor leaves or is disgraced and has to leave, a lot of the people that came into the church came in for one reason, because they like that pastor or they like that person. And so when that person is no longer there, they go, well, I'm out. But it can't be about that, can it? It's got to be a connection back to the Word. And that's what Moses is doing here. He's saying, if only everybody had the Spirit of the Lord upon them, then we wouldn't be having this problem of everybody complaining, right? And so that's how it's got to be. It's got to be a connection to the Word, not to the person that's the leader. And so here's what our Bible guy says. He says, Moses is a great model for servant leadership here again, that he's eager to share power, not hold on to it. He's authentic, vulnerable, and accepting. Okay? All right, question number 12. As we glimpse several of Moses' strengths and weaknesses, what encouragement do you receive for your own responsibilities in serving God and God's people? So,
Help out.
help out. Anybody else?
When you're in trouble, go back to the Lord.
There you go.
Well,
When you're in
yeah.
trouble, go back. I like both these, right? Help out. The congregation needs those that body of believers. When you're in trouble, don't flail around on your own. Go to the rock, right? Go to that person that's reaching out the hand to collect you and keep you safe. All right. And finally, Bible study reflection. Because all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God and are justified freely by His grace through redemption, that is in Jesus Christ. What it says there on your Bible study, I think I need to see, is you're supposed to make a list on the left. It says, Make a list of failures and frustrations inventory. Write down times when you have failed to live up to your own expectations or have not met the expectations of others. So this is something you can do at home. Go home and make a list of times that you go.
What are we gonna do with this list then?
It's by yourself. But look at the Bible verse when you're making that list. After you make that list of all the times you think you're a failure, so-and-so told me I should have done this, or I should have done this better, I should have done this better. That list can probably be long for us all. Look at the Bible verse then. What does that Bible verse say about our list of failures?
We can forget them.
There you go. I wasn't a good enough mother my whole life. I didn't make enough money. I didn't get that A in that class, or I didn't do this right. And you can make a list of all the things and expectations that have been placed on you, and then you look over and you say, well, wait a second. All are sinners. Is there one person out there besides Christ that has kept and lived up to every expectation?
No.
No. And so, as you look at your list, reconcile it with the Bible verse. After you make that list, say, hey, I understand that there's not one person other than Christ that has done that. And so, what can I do with those things? I can take them to the Lord, and He can relieve me of them. Right? You don't have to be that great failure. God says, that's why He sent Jesus, because He wasn't, to rescue you. Any thoughts? Questions? All right. Well, that will conclude our Bible study. Let's fold our hands with prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank You for this opportunity to learn at the feet of the cross and study Your word. As we go out, help us always to turn to You when we are feeling lost or frustrated. And help us also to help build up the church through our servant leadership. In Your name we pray. Amen. Join me on Sunday as we look at chapter, are you ready for this? 2 and 3 on Sunday morning of Mark. So we will see you on Sunday.